I wanted to talk about why I believe having two jobs is impractical. Before we begin, I want to start off by saying there are a lot of simpletons that when you complain about a job not giving you enough hours, they tell you just get a second one. Like they just click your heels and then you'll suddenly be working somewhere else. And the idea does sound nice on paper that I'm going to, as one computer clown put it, supplement my income with an additional job. But as someone who has tried this three times, I can say that I'm not going to call it something that is impossible, but it's made very difficult to do based off of the circumstances of being an employee at two places at the same damn time. The first time I tried this was in between October and November of 2023 when I first started working at what would end up being my longest job ever, the restaurant I was with. And another restaurant, I'll call the one I was with the longest Restaurant A, and I'll call the other one Restaurant B. Restaurant A hired me first, but Restaurant B started using me before Restaurant A would. Now Restaurant A, back in the golden era of over a year ago, was giving me about, on average, close to 30 hours a week. Back when the minimum wage over here was $16. Now it was the same amount at Restaurant B, but for some damn reason I could only get 4 hour shifts twice a week, which was altogether maybe like $100 a week if you were lucky. And I was at the time having to pay to live somewhere, which I just, it just all of it together made it to where it just wasn't practical to work for so few hours and then be expected to like stay with that. So I picked Restaurant A, even though it was much further from me than Restaurant B. But what I first tried to do was work at both. And what I would say to the manager at Restaurant B was, hey, I'll send you my schedule so that you can use me on days where I'm not working at Restaurant A. And this is something that he agreed to. And within 2 weeks, I was no longer working there. I had been gotten rid of because I was not available when they need me. And literally, I was still only getting from that place maybe a shift a week, two shifts a week. Remember, half shift, so it's only 4 hours. And at the other place, it was still roughly 8 hours, 3 or 4 times a week. So it was pretty evident which one I was going to pick to try and like prioritize over the other. But you see where I tried to work at both. I said to the one that was giving me less hours, hey, look, here's where you can schedule me when I'm not working at the other one. And they would not play ball. They were sudden. There's going to be a recurring theme you'll notice, which is that every time I try working at two places, one of them uses me to an extent that is, I would say, to my liking, and then the other one is so bare bones and minimal. But the one thing that is a constant is that they will give you that little itty bitty number of hours each week at a time that conflicts with you working at the other damn job. The second time that I had two jobs was in March of this year when I was working at one of these customer service roles. Of course, I said, they're deceptive, so they didn't tell me until I got in there that, oh, this is a canvassing job and you work 6 days a week. So you technically work 40 hours a week, but you work more than that. And when that happened, I had one day where I came into their stuff early, like, 9, 10, 11 o'clock. It was some little, they had a thing where they would set you up for a few very short shifts before like just having you go full in on one. And I was there for a few days. One day I had to work in the morning at the customer service job and then at Restaurant A later on in the day, which I wasn't too tired because there was like still enough time in between to not really be like, what's the way of putting it, so much work, right? Because one place is only 2 hours, the other place is 4 or 5 hours, and that's another running theme that some people actually work multiple places in the same day and still don't get 8 hours, which is insane. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I turned down working at the customer service role because I felt that I could not. I wasn't comfortable knocking on all those damn doors every day. So the next time I tried having two jobs was in, I believe it was either May or June, whatever the commission-based customer service job, and that's one of those jobs where, just like with the other one, it monopolizes all of your time, right? 6 days a week, but you're still, even in getting so many hours, only making a little itty bitty, making an amount of money that is still less than what you would make if the job paid hourly, because they want to find any excuse to not pay you as much as you should make. Oh, well, we believe in rewarding people based off of how many people they can sell things. So it's like, yeah, whatever. But with that job, I was there for about a week. I said, yeah, this is too much time. I really don't like working 6 days a week, especially at one place that can just turn me away whenever it feels like. And I just said, you know what, man, forget this. I should also mention I had a coworker who, again, this is a 6 day a week job. It starts at 9 in the morning, ends at like 5 or 6 p.m. And he was getting into trouble, or I guess conflict, with one of the higher up managers over there, because he was showing up to their morning routine before they go out in the field and, you know, do all their little selling nonsense. He was getting into a feud with one of the upper managers because he was showing up late to these meetings. And the reason he was showing up late to those meetings was because he was trying to work somewhere else on top of working there. So just think about this. He was working a part-time job on top of a full-time 6 day a week job. Because, as he put it, he had not received any payment from this place that was going to take 3 weeks to pay him for the first time. Of course, I was sympathetic to him, but the jerks that worked there, not so much. But just to kind of show a bit of a recurring theme here, one place will give me a number of hours that is satisfactory, or at least something that makes working there feel like it's worth it. And then the other place will give so few hours, but will always find a way to make the little itty bitty number of hours that it schedules for you conflict with the place that's giving you more hours, where you're constantly having to choose between, okay, do I go to this one or that one? And then if you choose to keep neglecting to go to one job oh so many times, you could get fired for, just not showing up all these absences. But you only have absences because you're working your other job, and you're only working 2 jobs because the one job having one is just not enough, because nobody, all these different retailers and food places want to hire people part-time, so they don't have to pay that much money or give you any benefits. So it really is just a domino effect of constantly having to just juggle this stuff that's really, like I said, not practical. And a lot of people online, they make it sound so easy. Oh, your first job has you Monday through, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So just get one on the days where you're not working. It's like, hey, that also is not feasible. See, last year, when I was at the height of my financial destitution, paying all the stuff to the bank every month, I tried to apply for, I think, it was Target. And what I was going to do, because I have 6 days availability, or I had 6 days availability, with Restaurant A, was say to Target, hey, look, I'm going to change my availability over there to 4 days a week, and then I'll give you guys 3 days. And so when I filled out the application, I gave them the whole weekend, right? Saturday, Sunday, and then I think one of the weekdays, like Tuesday, Wednesday. So several days where they would just have me whenever they want. And they responded to my application by declining it, and the reason they gave was that your number of hours, or your availability, does not align with our desired wants. Like, basically saying that the 3 days that you've given us are not enough. Open up even more of your schedule. And I just wasn't willing to do that, knowing that these places only like to give people these little 5-hour shifts, maybe twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. If it's Restaurant A, then maybe only once a week. And that's really where it started to kind of dawn on me that trying to work at 2 places at the same time was just not, I'm not going to call it like just unfeasible. Like, there are people who can do it. There are people who've been able to like find a way to go to one in the morning, go to one at night. But the problem with a lot of these different, again, retailers, restaurants, is that this goes back to, again, that domino effect and the absurdity of having such crappy labor laws, or the lack thereof. The restaurant job, right? Restaurant A, as I've been calling it, they gave me shifts that started from as early as 11 in the morning to as late as 8 o'clock at night. You could have a shift that starts 11 a.m. ends at 4 p.m., or a shift that starts at 7 or 8 p.m. that ends at 12 or 1 in the morning. And I guess what I'm conveying here is that when your schedule is so all over the place, there's really not much you can do to kind of like plan in advance. Like you're never going to be able to say definitively, okay, I'm working at the restaurant for these 3 days this week, or I'm working at the restaurant for these 4 days this week, but it's always going to be in the morning or it's always going to be at night. It's all over the place. And you could say, oh, it's your fault for giving them open availability, but it's like, guys, you could not get some of these jobs if you did not just throw yourself at them in that way. If you said, hey, look, I only can work on the weekend. You might get a shift a week, but if you go and say, hey, I'm available, Monday through Sunday, maybe with the exception of like Saturday or Sunday for like 1 day of just definitive rest, they still could say, hey, you're not available when we need you, as the other place said. So you're seeing where, again, that domino effect of, because the job either with the few times it gives you hours, they're all over the place, or is just, complete, again, in general, unpredictable in terms of how many hours it's willing to give, you are forced to look for something else on top of it. But what you try to get on top of it tends to conflict with the job you already have, which creates friction with the first employer, which can lead to your termination. I mean, it's like, I can't believe I actually have to explain this to people. Because there are simpletons on this website who are like, whoa, just go look for another job. Just try to get another job on top of that one. It's like, it's not that easy. And that's why I started to really feel a sense of despair these past like couple of days, or I guess within the past week, because I saw it as, a lot of times I try to find solutions and things. The restaurant was barely giving me any hours, so I jumped ship. I said, this is stupid. And I said, okay, even if I can't get somewhere where it's 40 a week, that, and I mentioned that, because you have some weird guy in my comment section, I thought you already had 40 hours of work each week job. I was like, yeah, the one that is literally paying you based off of how much you sell versus hourly, so they can save on average $200, $300 every week. But what I'm saying is that I've tried very hard to look for solutions with things that I am not satisfied with, and it is a slap in the face to try working somewhere with these unstable schedules, and then being like led by that to go and look for another job to possibly work in, on the days where they're not using you. And then because that first place can't make up its mind in terms of just giving you a stable, even if it's not 40, a stable number of hours each week, it's mayhem. It's always going to lead to your downfall. And again, anything short of proper labor laws is not going to fix this. I'm like, in my mind, I can imagine a labor law where they say, if you're a company that wants to do the whole part-time employee crap, you need to give specific days where the person can be available so that they can go and work somewhere else for the other days and get anything resembling a full-time schedule. Because like I said, these companies they're creating, by virtue of only hiring people part-time, except if you're a manager, it seems, they are creating the issue of people being underworked, which in turn leads them to try working somewhere else, which is then followed by unstable schedules from either the first place or the second place or both, and then possibly can lead to their termination from one of their two jobs, the two of which they only have because one damn job just isn't enough with the way all these places are operating. It's a mess. It is a insane mess, and it's something, just to kind of close this out, I'll never not think we live in a rotten society when a person who just wants to work, who just wants to go and perform whatever duty that they might otherwise prefer not to be doing, but still see a value in it based off of the money that they make, is so hamstrung in terms of being able to make any money off of these jobs, because the jobs simply do not want to give them benefits or pay them the amount of money that would be necessary, even for the type of job that they're doing. Because you had, this one clown, I did a whole video about the what's a real job video, where they talk about, oh, get a real job. It's like, well, I mean, you say that, but all of these different tasks, even the ones that hire me part-time, are relating to things that need to be fulfilled throughout an entire week. Going and working at some restaurant and washing dishes, and the place is open from 10 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, and even 2 or 3 hours later, they're going to need someone to clean all of their dishes, especially once they get to that lunch hour around 12 o'clock, from the early afternoon to that night when the place finally closes, and then even after the place closes, because they still have dirty stuff from in the kitchen. It is not the fault of the employee who they've trained to do that one thing to now have to learn how to do other things just to get a number of hours a week that is closer to zero than 40. And they even tell on themselves, because like I said, when I first started working at Restaurant A, I could sit there and just clean stuff, for 7 or 8 hours with no complaint from anybody, no issue, whatever. And then once they started cutting the hours after the fast food worker wages were raised to 20, they created 3 shifts a day, right, for 3 different people to come in and clean that stuff, so that they didn't have to pay one person as much money every week, which means that when they come to me and say, oh, we can only schedule you once or twice a week because that's all that's available, we know they're full of crap, because they have three shifts of what I was doing up there for over a year, every day, Monday through Sunday, and I have 6 days of availability. So that means that's on average about 18 different shifts that they could pick and choose to use me for at least 3 or 4 of them each week if they so choose. They just don't want to, because like I said, the main mission here is to not pay people as much money as as possible. But it's disgusting. It really is. And I know that if I can't get like a job that gives me a decent, because everybody was always have good pay. It's like it's always about hours. I know that if I can't get a job that gives me a decent number of hours, it's not about lack of experience or skills or qualifications or performance, right? Because my hours started getting cut at the other place when they had no issue with anything relating to me. Otherwise, they would have said something, as they have no problem doing. But I know that if I cannot get a job that is 40 hours a week, it has nothing to do with performance or experience or any other personal thing relating to me. It is simply a manifestation of a company not wanting to pay someone the amount of money that would be necessary for them to live off of these little crappy positions, because these places, whether it's the fast food ones or the retailers, are all run by a bunch of greedy, desperate, self-serving pricks that would sooner slit their own wrist than have to pay someone to work 40 hours a week. God forbid you have to give a person benefits. That's like hell on earth for them.